Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining me once again back on Tuesdays for yet another Avengers live stream. Let's discuss crypto, Bitcoin, and all things related to that. Hello, everyone in the chat. Sorry if we slightly overtook the chat to start off. We were just talking about how crap England are at football. But when you ask me how I'm doing, the only thing that's really stressing me out right now, because Bitcoin is being so boring in this range, is just how poorly we are playing. However, we're still in the tournament, so we'll see where that goes come Saturday. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for joining me. And yes, let's have a look. What are we going to talk about tonight? There's a few news things, actually, that have come out. Beginning of July, certainly there's been some news events I think are worth talking about. I will skirt over them because I don't want to be spending half an hour talking about news. And then I want to get into Bitcoin. I want to get into something that I'm seeing quite a bit of discussion about on social media, particularly Twitter. And that's this sort of, as I've termed it, this blockbuster summer. Are we ready for some big spending? We're going to drive that price back up. And I always want to examine whether or not there is a history of that, whether or not it's sustainable, and also sort of maybe some of the things that may actually hold us back from seeing those real gains. So we are going to have a look at the macro. We'll also have a look at the miniature as well, because I think it's worth diving down. Don't want to get too worried here, but I might even break myself down onto the 4-hour chart later on today. I've had a couple of late questions from the Avengers. I saw those in Discord, so I've picked those up, and I'll try and answer those as best as I can. And then, we are going to go through some of the other alts that we hold as a community, or I've certainly got my eye on. If you have any questions, please feel free, as always, dumping them into the chat. I will try and look at them as best I can. And I don't know why it's just popped into my head, but I tell you what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to move my camera. I tried playing around with it last week. I didn't like the angle, but this one's just off to this side, and I have like a 2-monitor setup. So when I actually talk to you, you get a side-on view of the face. I'm going to try and move that a bit further across. Don't know why I mentioned it, but I have. Anyway, let's just dive straight in. Okay, as always, let's have a look at the charts. We're on the weekly here, and there's nothing really changed from this time last week, to be honest with you. We're at the bottom of a range, potentially the neckline of a double top. Let's just bring Bitcoin up here, which, should that play out, we could see some falls, 55, 50. I don't want to dare say anything below 50. I think we kind of covered the drop side of things last week. So I don't want to ignore it, because we have to remember both sides. But, this one, I want to more focus on some positive things there. But we are at the bottom of this range right now. We'll wait to see what happens. What I will say, as you can see from last week's candle, how that one closed, is a lovely low test. Now, you could argue it's in a falling market, so potentially it could discount. But a nice low test off previous support levels. And we've seen with candles like that what the reaction is. We've still got 5 days left in this candle, so who knows what could happen and where this one could go. So totally discounting our current candle. We shall just wait and see where that one plays out. Now, have a look at some of the other ones. Look at Casper. So Casper's another interesting one, as a lot of you know. For the last couple of weeks, I've been buying back into Casper. Long story short, I really like the strength of price action that I've seen. I'm still not sold on its use within the marketplace, but that doesn't matter. We're all here to try and make some money, and I can't help but notice that there has been something there. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did actually talk about an ideal entry level, which would be if we got back down to here, sort of having a look at price, bump it up, coming back to this line, bump it up, coming back to this line, bump it up, and then heading back down here. And at the time, I had my entry levels, kind of around about 12. We never got down there, so I didn't get in. And I'd basically be buying in through this candle and a little bit this week here. I'm not planning on selling. I've got to be honest, and I will talk about Casper a little bit later on. I do feel like there probably is a little bit of downwards movement. How far it goes down, I don't necessarily know. But right now, I'm kind of in a position where I just want to get back the size of the bag that I sold at 12 cents. And I'll feel, quite happy with how much I have then for where that goes. So I think that one's still moving. There has actually been some fundamental news with Casper. Obviously, there was a KRC20, which was launching, I suppose. They did have some trouble with that over the weekend, which has caused that price to come back down. And I dare say, I'll talk about the rest of that later. But for me, this sort of trend line here is certainly what I'm looking at on the bigger scale. But yeah, I'm still really liking this price action. One of the strongest alts that has performed whilst Bitcoin has been ranging and even dipping, you could argue. So nothing wrong with that. We did actually touch an all-time high over the weekend as well with the KRC20 launch, if you can call it that. But anyway, Ethereum. So we'll cover it in the news, but everyone speculated that we might actually see Ethereum ETF launching today. That isn't the case. It is kind of ranging back down. I think the announcement that came around, the shock announcement as it was a few weeks ago about the ETF, Ethereum ETF, obviously caused that huge spike back up. And whilst it has retraced similarly to what Bitcoin has done, we just have had, I suppose, people holding on to that Ethereum, waiting to see what happens. Maybe not as, or maybe reluctant to sell, more reluctant to sell than those holding Bitcoin were where that is going. Now, the ETF, as I'll cover briefly in the news, it's not been cancelled or anything. We just don't know when the date of when that's going to go live, but we'll find out that soon enough. But again, you know, potentially a little bit more falling down to 3,000. I don't really see that unless we see Bitcoin tumble. And then obviously that will bring that one down. But right now, had we not have had that ETF news, I would assume that this would look like a much more complete double top, Batman ears, whatever you want to call it. And then the final one that we kind of cover, you know, at the beginning is BitTensor. And BitTensor is still kind of falling, unfortunately, within that pattern. I'm still not 100% back into BitTensor, but as you see a bit later on with my allocation, it is getting stronger and stronger. I've just been buying when we've kind of been hitting this bottom line. Okay, where do we see where it may go? And we'll have a look at the analysis a little bit later on. Right now, that 200 level kind of screams to be complete if we are going to complete this falling wedge, which I've drawn on the weekly. So it's not looking pretty. I appreciate that, but you get the sentiment that there is some sort of wedge pattern falling down there. So, you know, yes, okay, we could really risk it all, not bother keep on topping up as we hit this trend line and try and hope and wait that it comes down to 200, which is an obvious level given what we got here, especially on the weekly. Yep, I absolutely get it. And you could argue, well, for every four that I hold off buying now, when I get down there, I'd be able to get 5 worth. And I get it, but this is not the time to be nitpicking. You know, we've already had the fall. Some of those have been able to benefit from the fall from 600, 700, and come back down. And, you know, I've had a few side steps from this, but I've not increased the amount that I've put in, but I've certainly significantly increased the amount of TAU that I have. And we're just waiting for that move to come. But, you know, if you were just looking at this, you didn't even think about any other market sentiment, whether it be traditional finance, Bitcoin, crypto market as a whole, the political landscape, whatever, and just looked at it at TA, you'd be saying there is a high probability that this will bounce. And it will bounce relatively soon. We are at the apex of this compression at the moment. And we're about to flirt with previous support at the $200, $217 level. So, yes, just, you know, if you've got the nerve, absolutely go for it. Hold off down there. I'm just sort of filling the bags as it goes down. We'll just wait to see where that happens. We'll cover all of those in a bit more detail a little bit later on, and some of the other ones as well. I forgot to say hello to everybody in the chat, but thank you again for joining us. And let's just jump into some news. Now, I tried to summarize it, and I put a tweet out yesterday because there are 3 things that I think will be used as FUD, or potential FUD over the next few days, and this month. And I think they will just be used to FUD to potentially scare us here, and they may not be such a big issue. One of them being Mt. Gox. Now, we talked about that last month. Actually, it was last week, but it technically was last month as well. They're finally, after years of flirting around with it, actually going to start paying out. There's a significant amount of Bitcoin. People are talking about $8.5 billion worth could be dumped onto the market. So I think that'll be used as FUD, absolutely. The ETH ETF postponement, yep. So everyone was thinking it was going to go to the 2nd of July. There was no announcement from the SEC that was the date, but we now know that won't be the date because it's the 2nd of July and that's not there. And then the other one is the MiCA announcement. So again, we've been covering for some weeks now, and effectively, unless it's a regulated stablecoin within the EU, you're not able to use it. So we are losing access to things like Tether, Frax, DAI, and about 3 or 4 others. So again, that could be something that could be used to scare the market, but don't fall for it, I would say. Yes, it may cause some people to drive that price down, but I will argue, and I'm hopefully going to try and show you over the course of the next 40, 50 minutes that those may not be long-lived. So with the Mt. Gox side of things, so there's 8.5 billion that's going to be paid back, but actually what they're saying is they're only expecting about $4 billion worth of that to hit the spot market. That sounds like a lot. It does, but it isn't. That's a drop in the ocean for Bitcoin. We have a look at the Bitcoin coin market cap right now. I'll refresh it to make sure. And we're averaging around about $21 billion worth of volume every single day on Bitcoin. We're talking about 4 billion hitting it across the month. I don't actually think that that level of volume is going to drive the price unless it was a single sell order at a set price, So again, 4 billion I think will quite easily be eaten up within just a day's ebbs and flows of buys and sell orders within Bitcoin. So again, don't worry too much about that. The spot ETF that we talked about, delayed. I don't think it's delayed as such. People thought it was going to happen on the 2nd of July, but actually last week what occurred was the SEC requested that people amend their S1 application forms, and they gave a resubmission date of July the 8th, which obviously took it past the 2nd of July. So that's all that's happened. We saw this happen with Bitcoin back end of December, beginning of January this year. There are adjustments that need to be made, and the SEC will work them. This may not actually even be the last one that's required. We will wait and see. But it now means that realistically, we're not going to probably get that spot ETF till minimum the 15th of July, probably actually a little bit later than that. Something to keep our eyes on. And going back to the EU and the MiCA, don't know how you're pronouncing it, regulation compliance in the EU, which stands for markets in crypto assets. I don't think this is such a big issue because although, yes, those in the EU markets are now losing access to Tether, one of the ones that has been granted regulatory approval in the EU is Circle, and Circle is USDC. Now, USDC isn't exactly a small cryptocurrency, if you want to call it stablecoin. Actually sits sixth in the chart. I don't have market cap on here. I don't know why. Customize. Where's market cap? Why can I not see it? I can't see it. I'm just blinded. Circulating supply. Apply changes. Where's that popped up? So, there's $32 billion worth of USDC currently circulating at the moment. So not a small stable coin for those in Europe that can't have access to Tether anymore to utilize. So again, I don't think it's relatively that big an issue, but we shall wait and see. Some of the other news events that caught my eye this week, which I think we've kind of already discussed. I've gone and clicked on the wrong one, but I might as well do this now. In the SEC versus Binance court case, do you remember? I mean, CZ's, I don't know if he's actually nearly served all this time. It must be pretty darn close. But in a very positive win for cryptocurrency, and you kind of see this shift at the moment in the political landscape, which we will talk about later. A federal court, I can't remember what state it's in here somewhere, the District of Columbia, has ruled that cryptocurrency tokens themselves are not securities. Massive implications with that ruling. Obviously, it needs to be passed through and challenged and all that kind of stuff, but its initial element of that is huge, and repercussions on things like XRP and everything else is, we don't know where that's going to go, but it's a big step towards the crypto industry finally being able to dust off these shackles of the SEC claiming they're all securities. But even in another element that was covered within this case about the secondary sales of BNB token, that doesn't constitute securities either. That was one of the arguments that the SEC came out with, and it was one of the things they were challenging. And for those of you that are regulars, and we talked about the Howey test and all that kind of stuff, which I don't really want to go into. Again, the court has ruled that actually the secondary sale, so you buying it off Binance or other places, doesn't constitute securities. So another significant victory there. As I said, we'll just read this quote here. The court has held that the SEC failed to plead that the purchasers in secondary market sales acquired BNB with the expectation of profit rather than for other uses, which is a key criterion for passing the Howey test, the legal framework outlined by the Supreme Court to determine whether a transaction qualifies as an investment contract. So that's a statement from the judge in how they've come down to find their ruling. And we'll see where the implications for that lie with the likes of Ripple and the other 57 cryptocurrencies that have been outlined as a security by the SEC. But positive bit of news, I don't think it's got that much coverage, and it's certainly the market didn't really react massively to it, but I still think it's a very big element. This was quite interesting because now we're seeing that of the top 25 US hedge funds, over 50% of those, and it is just over because it's 13, actually have some form of exposure towards BTC. And someone published this chart here. Now you can't see the top, so I'll just close it down again. But you can kind of see, I cannot vouch for if these actually are the top 25, but I've just taken it with a pinch of salt. And you can see, and this is as of the end of March. So we're seeing the information from Q1 now that we were coming into the end of Q2, or we have ended Q2. So these may have actually moved on even further. But you can kind of see there are 13 different companies there, and Millennium Management with 27,000 BTC under their belt. Hats off to them. Sconfeld, 6.7 thousand. So, yeah, some big exposure by some of these hedge funds, which is just another, string to the bow. It may not affect it in the macro. It may not affect it in the short term. But you know what? People are buying. They're buying under the radar, and there isn't that much of a supply. And when that flood door opens, I think that's where we're going to see that squeeze and that pump up to those new levels. Where was it? And I think everyone knows about this one at the moment, but Van Eyck, and I actually think someone else as well. I can't remember who it is. Maybe Fidelity. Maybe not. I can't remember now. They have applied for a Solana ETF. So this is the first, technically second altcoin, but the first altcoin ETF application outside of Ethereum. Now, trust me, this one's got a long way to go, and I think there's plenty of hurdles that need to be overcome. But the fact that companies are already going, right, we've proven that the Bitcoin ETF works. They've obviously done their research, their due diligence to see if there's an appetite for the Ethereum one, and that one's about to launch. And they're actually probably doing their research and understanding whether or not investors and institutions have any interest in altcoins. And of course, Solana is going to be top of the radar because let's face it, whether you love or hate it, it's gone from $8 to $200 back down to $140. But that kind of growth in a 12-month period is going to be attractive for any kind of investor. And so whether or not it can do that, again, doesn't necessarily matter. The fact is, it is a buzzword. It is one of the biggest altcoins out there, and it has performed very well since the start of this bull run. So hats off to them. Hopefully that at least, opens the playing fields for other altcoins to get their ETFs. I mean, I don't want to see 22,000 ETFs opening up for every single altcoin out there. I do think they need to be selective, and we do need to see how this one goes through. But the fact that we are seeing that is a positive spin. I think that's it. 18 minutes to get through the news. Perfect. Didn't waste too much time on it. So I'll do what I normally do, which is promise to put these in Discord and then never actually get around to doing it. But I think some of those are at least worthwhile in you sort of having a better understanding of where they're going. Not necessarily because you're going to need to trade off it or whatever, but just to sort of understand the market sentiment. And I think sometimes, we spend so much time, or I certainly spend so much time every day looking at crypto, and I do get narrowed into stuff, and I kind of miss the bigger picture. And that's why covering news articles like this just paves the way for where we're going. And we are early in this bull run. It's still 2024. That's like being in the 2021 bull run, but it's 2020 still. We've got plenty of time for this to go, and we're already starting to see the dominoes fall in the right direction. So it's just great to see, and hopefully takes us to where we need to go. I don't know why I have the Dixie open here. To be honest, I think I must just have randomly clicked on that. I don't actually, honestly, that is not me trying to skirt around anything that I wanted to show you on here. I mean, it's what we're on. We're on a monthly chart. Let's get to something a bit more realistic. 2-day. I mean, it's starting to fall down, obviously, from where we've seen it. I don't like to call a trend line too quickly on any of these because we just don't know if it's going to get redesigned. But there's definitely something there. And then obviously yesterday it had a bit of a whipsaw. Maybe we're starting to see that fall away from it. But we've got a lot of time where we need to see what the dollar's going to do because we've seen it whipsaw in the past. So let's just give it a little bit, see how that goes over the course of the next week or so. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's just jump into Bitcoin's price action. and where we see this going. It's the start of a new month, so I've updated my chart like I always do. Not much has really changed. The white line's got longer. We have finally broken down through it, and that might look like a fairly simple fall through, but actually, I think give this trend line some respect, because actually what happened is on the 18th, we went down, we've hit it, we've bounced back up, we've gone back up to the 50 EMA, been rejected nicely off that. Then we've lost it, but we bounced all the way back up, hit it again, and then we've finally gone back down. So I still think this is a very important trend line. Why is it important now? Because that's our next level of challenge. You know, whenever we do this turnaround, that's it, he said it. That's where we're going to be fighting. And you know what? Lo and behold, unless we have a massive pump up, by the time we mess around and bounce around, I reckon we are going to be this white line, end of July, whatever, kind of at the 70K level, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail. But that 70K level, top of the range that we're battling at the moment, could be another decent battleground there to see exactly what's going to go on. So much higher level one, obviously. I feel like I have to explain it every single time, but just to let you know that the two boxes here are the sort of the major clusters of liquidation levels that are taken from high block. There's one a bit further down, but I've graded out because it's not necessarily that important at the moment. And I found out how to get the old system of high block back. So that's better. It looks a little bit cleaner, but these are the clusters, you know, sort of that 72 and upwards, and then down here. And what is interesting, I just want you to bear this in mind on the lower time frame. I will zoom in here. So we got something in and around about 58,000, something in and around, it definitely build up around about that 56,000, and then another clump down at about 51,000. So certainly to the downside, there are levels that can be attractive. And, you know, as we discussed at length last week, there is definitely some analysis that could draw you towards the fact that we could head that way. And so when we think about those levels, and we will just put some rays on here, at 58,000, bang. Actually, that's the bottom of that vector candle. This little nib here hasn't actually been recovered. I know this blue one has recovered this bit, but so there's definitely something there. Have a look at 58,000. That's what we talked about. And then you got this one here, another one, 56,000. We're eating into these vector candles down on the side here. And then the final one that I mentioned was that 51,000, which is kind of down that tip there. That's 50,090. Sorry, you can't see that because probably my face is in the way. And that's picking up this sharp move up from 50,000 beginning of March, when we were really starting to see the inflows of the ETFs. So that's kind of interesting because actually, when we look at it like that, these all tie into sort of unrecovered vector candles. And I suppose this purple one, was actually eating into this green that had gone up. So maybe that's a disingenuous statement there. It's not meant to be. But certainly this red one here and down this green one, these are the two kind of live ones that we're looking to. So again, I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but that's definitely something there to have a look at. What was my next chart? Oh no. Did I throw? Let's just see what happens if I do this. Okay. And what is still quite interesting, I think we've seen this before, is that 618 level, which was hit, you know, so we've had that bounce off that there, but it's still tying in with where that level is. So, and also the 200 EMA on the daily. So even if we were to fall and retest that 58 level, we've got the 618 to get through, the 200 EMA as well. So maybe we just see that next bounce up. Moving it back to sort of that positive kind of attitude. I'm on the weekly here. No, I'm not on the monthly. Wow, let's go on to the weekly. Why was I on the monthly there? What was I trying to talk about? No idea what I was wanting to talk about on the monthly. Maybe it'll come back to me. Let's throw it on to the weekly. Oh yeah, I know what I was. So with the monthly chart here, obviously we've just had the close in June. And I think this ranging pattern here cannot be better summarized than these four candles. We had that pump up, engulfing candle back down, pump back up to recover it. And it wasn't an engulfing candle, but that only happened in like the last 2 hours of Sunday night. We sort of saw that recovery from 61 back up to about 63, which is good to see. But we can just sort of see very clearly now that actually we have been in that ranging pattern. And it's just been trading blow for blow, a bit like Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa. No guards, just punches to the face each month. followed by a sweet punch ourselves. So, we've got a bit of a battleground to get through, but I don't mind this. I don't mind it. Okay, it's 120 days or so of just ranging between that 70,000 and 60,000 level. Of course, there's been dips below it. But I see that certainly for the future cycles as a fantastic position, because if we keep on building this 60K bottom, wherever we shoot up to and come back down to, that 60K is going to be a real barrier. So fast forward 4 years, this could be a fantastic place to be. Now, getting on to the whole meat of this conversation in terms of Blockbuster Summers. Any of you that follows crypto Twitter cannot have missed it. I even posted one myself, but they've not posted that. Someone's going to have posted what you're seeing right now, the Bitcoin monthly returns. And what they're sort of trying to illustrate or draw your attention to, or what I'm going to draw your attention to right now, is the month of July, which doesn't highlight very well, but it's this month here. Still doesn't highlight. There we go. Now, we can see that actually, if you just go down to the average and the medium down here, generally, July kind of does see an uptick. Over the course of the last 10, 11 years, we have seen an average increase over that period of around about 7%. That's not the important thing. The important thing is actually looking at where June is, because June is a bit of a 50-50 kind of month. But what is interesting, and ignore this one here, but every single June that has ended in the red, and granted, there's only 5 of them, but we can only go with the data that we've got, has seen their July pretty much a double-digit increase. So the argument is that July actually is one of the best times to be buying Bitcoin throughout the whole of the year. And I can't really argue with that, to be honest. I get it. It's only 5 data points and it's not necessarily there. But if you were to be looking at where you want to go, looking at sort of past histories, actually July is a good time. And historically, it's proven to be the start of some pretty good runs, especially as, it's the summer. July, August, September's out of the way. And then we're starting talking about October and all sorts of things, Santa rallies and everything else. So getting in after the falls that we typically see in May and in June, sell in May, go away type attitude, finding some level to buy is definitely a positive thing, especially if we've been just interacting in and around the base support level for the last 3-4 months, and we're still in and around those levels. From a long-term perspective, this is a fantastic area. And I saw this chart on Twitter. Now, I appreciate, let's see if I can move my, you can kind of see it. Let's just move my face cam for a second. Up there you go. I won't remember to move that back. But what this is kind of illustrating, and I saw this on a YouTube video, and then I saw it on a news article on Cointelegraph. So I don't actually know the gentleman's name, but they've posted this on TradingView. I think it says Murmutation published. There you go, on TradingView. So hats off to them for this. I was going to draw it myself, but this is just far quicker to do it. And what they were effectively saying is, and you can see it, so we can go all the way back to 2018. So 2018, we've had that fall. It bottoms in June, and then we see some sort of rally. Okay, and this was, in this instance, it's followed by a 50% move in July. We go 2019. We bottom in June. Oh yeah, I was going to say, where's he pointing at there? So we've bottomed in June. I think it's a little bit of a clutch at the straws, because we didn't fall that far, but we had that rally up. We had a pullback in June. I think that's probably the best way. And then we had an 85% continuation up. We go to 2020, just after the halving. Yep, I had to think about that. We've had that pullback, so the post-halving sort of pullback low, and then we move up 40%. They don't look big, but I assure you, 40% move, nice to see. We go into June 2021, where we had the collapse after the April high. And guess what? Yeah, price bottomed in June. And again, we saw 140% rise over that summer period. So July and August. We go to 2022. Now we're in a bear market here. And we had the collapse of, I've got to get this one right, 3 Arrows Capital and Celsius. And that sort of finished in June. And then we saw a bit of a rally going into 2022. Sorry, into the summer of 2022. And that was a 43% rise. And then, yeah, you guessed it, back in 2023, we had that pullback. I can't remember if that was due to the banking crisis. I don't think it was. I think that one was March. Whatever the reason, we had that pullback, bottomed in June, and then over that summer period, we saw a 28% increase in price. And so this is the argument that people are saying is not only do we have the monthly closes that give us the percentage, but when we actually look at it across both July and August, so a summer period, what we're really seeing here for the last 6 occurrences is a positive outcome. And the minimum one we see there is 28%. But I can't even work out the medium in my head right now. It's probably going to be around about 70. So a fairly decent return from what we're going. We've been ranging in this pattern for long enough that potentially a 70% increase would certainly excite a lot of people to get us into that sort of move. Now, we've got to caveat it with they don't always last. Absolutely. So this is not a foolproof system or anything. But what we can say is when it's in the bull market, particularly post-halving, yes, we may have had a pullback towards the end of the summer, but it has been a kickstart into what goes on. And unfortunately, this person's chart doesn't go back to 2017, but I can assure you it was a very similar situation for that. So, it's not the only reason why I think that we are ready for a potential breakout and a blockbuster session within this summer period, but it is certainly a compelling argument that is being made. Now, what's this one for? From now on, let me move this back. I need to start writing notes on the top of my, why can't I get that? Just go there, on the top of my screen. Okay, what we're seeing here, I think what I was probably trying to illustrate, again, just with the weekly, I'm going to work myself down, don't worry. People have been talking about this, and it's true. We can't ignore it. There's some sort of bear flag ultimately on the weekly. We're not quite at the base of it, and yes, it has wicked through. I'm just trying to pick up the bodies here. But we're in the lower segment of that. Sorry, I said bear flag. I meant bull flag for what that could potentially produce. Now, what do we know about bull flags? Is we've got the move up into it, the sort of like ranging pattern as it go, and then generally the argument is it is whatever the flagpole was from the other side is where price could go. So we don't know where that's going to be. We don't know how long it is. But I was going to say it's argument there. And where does that take us to? Around about 90,000. 90,000. Pretty impressive level by the end of, that's kind of like September time. And yeah, I'm not saying that is guaranteed to be the price. And I think we have discussed in the past, it's difficult now because we're going to be in price discovery. But if you do take things like this and try and use fib retracement levels, I talked about that. I think it was 83,000 last time I discussed it, but that kind of 86,000 level I kind of see as a potential area of hesitation, which kind of is tying in with where that bull flow is going. I mean, by that stage, it literally is anybody's guess. So, don't hold me to any of those, but that's sort of kind of the levels that we potentially can see. So the bull flag's still on, but we're on the weekly chart, and so many different things can happen between now and then on the weekly chart. And it's not something that I just think, right, well, that's my trade setup for me then. Go from the weekly. We have to break it down into those lower timeframes and kind of have a look in a bit more detail. And one of the things that we can do with that is we have been ranging, as I've mentioned, God knows how many times during this stream alone, for the last 3 or 4 months. And so we can have a look at some of those key levels that we've been ranging in and around and kind of see, well, where are we within those? And the ones that I've kind of pulled out, I've made them slightly bigger, but the levels that I was kind of interested in, 72,000, 67,500, 64,000, and like that 61, 65, 60,000 kind of level, which are what are illustrated within these boxes that hopefully clear enough on your side. Now, I think price action in and around those has respected them fairly well, enough to certainly draw my eye to those areas once we've drawn the boxes across. But what we can actually see is when we do come down to this lower level, this 60,000, okay, doesn't always hold, but we generally have some sort of movement out there. We spend enough time within this and we get that momentum and that move up. Now, we have spent, best part of 5-6 days in and around that lower 60,000 level. And we did see that shoot back up to 64 yesterday, but there's been a fairly clean rejection from that, okay? So, I'm not saying that it can't turn around here because it absolutely can. But, if it doesn't, we may see ourselves heading back down to that 61,000 level again on the shorter term. We just continue with the bottom of that range and where it goes. Now, I don't have a problem with that because I showed earlier on that we had I need to get my pencil out or brush. This on the daily, but I showed you on the weekly, that sort of double top pattern. Okay, that's the neckline. Well, if this keeps on going out to the right without going up, that kind of negates the double top, in my opinion. If we see it go all the way back and reject and come back down, we're kind of talking about a triple top then. Not as good. But yeah, if we just start to see this dribble out to the side, then I think we can negate the double top, which is the positive thing. We don't like double tops in a bull market. We only like those in a bear market, so we can get a better price in. Let's get rid of those now. Now, interestingly, if I do throw a fib onto this one, I mean, you can now see probably why. Look at this. We had that fall down last week. We hit the 618 quite nicely. Was it last week? Yeah, it was 24th of June. And we bounced straight back up. We've mulled around the 0.5, the $61,000 level. We've gone up to 63,500, the 382, and we've ejected from that. So the golden ratios or the golden levels that I like to look at on the fib levels are what are kind of constricting us at the moment. And that's a natural turnaround position from that. So no problem whatsoever. But interestingly enough, should we even break that, look at where this other level is. That's 67,000. That's on the 236 level there. And then obviously get back up to the top of the 73. But they're not, to me anyway, they're not just imaginary levels that I'm thinking here. Yes, price action ties into them, but that price action is probably driven by its reaction in and around the Fibonacci levels. Just my opinion, but that's what I like to have a look at, how I like to assess those kind of things. So that's what I'm seeing at the moment on the daily charts. And that doesn't necessarily worry too much. I talked last week, as I've explained, with where I see price going and how it could drop down. But at the moment, it ranging here, just giving me ideal opportunities to just fill up on some more Bitcoin. And I did. I put my money where my mouth was last week. I actually sent ahead of time, because normally I buy Bitcoin on my business account at the beginning of each month. I actually sent some at the end of last month because I just couldn't resist the $61,000 level, because I think that's a good entry at the moment. There will come a time when I just stop buying Bitcoin, I think. I won't sell what I've bought, but I'll just stop buying whilst we climb too high. I don't know what that level in my mind is yet, but they'll just get a point where the amount I'm buying each month just isn't really worth losing however much I'm going to lose just in a transaction fee. So yeah, that's where we are with that. Now, taking us down onto the 4 hour. Okay, so for me, this is pretty low territory, and I'm fairly nervous here. And I've actually also thrown up the CME chart. Now, I don't normally talk about the CME chart, but there's an interesting observation that can be made from this. So on the chart at the moment, don't worry about the CME gap or anything like that. What can we see? We were in a downtrend, okay? Fairly clear downtrend, for the last month, effectively. Came back, hit this trend line each time, came out, rejected it. Then we broke through it, and we broke through it with strength at the beginning of a week, I might add, and we've cleared it. And now what's happening? Well, we're just drifting back down. So my view at the moment is, naturally, we break through it. What do we expect to happen when we break through? Some sort of Kobo. So I'm expecting over the short term, next week, a few days, week or so, maybe we do see that drift back down here. Nothing to be necessarily worried about. We have some sort of interaction in and around this trend line, probably around about that 60K level. And then we hopefully start to see putting in a higher high, and we start to build that momentum going up. But let's have a look now what's also tying in at that level, because there is a CME gap, and this CME gap is, guess what? Right there. Okay, that's the gap that it's formed. So now we can see that there's a CME gap as well, because it opened above that level, and we've so far not recovered it. And although we don't talk about CME gaps that often on here, I think they used to be a thing, and then I don't know. They are still a thing. Don't get me wrong. They used to be a thing that I used to follow, but I don't really give it much time anymore. But I think what we can all agree is 9 times out of 10, CME gaps do get filled. And that's just known, trying to find some here. Look, gap up, filled. I'm trying to find some gaps, quite simple ones. Gap up, wicks down, fills. There's a gap there, but it filled quickly. Gap up here, fills. Gap there, fills. I mean, I haven't found one that hasn't filled at the moment. This one, it did, because it wicked down. There's a gap, and it did come back up, kind of fill. So you can see, even on Bitcoin, they happen. This one here, it gapped up, took a while, but it did fill down at the bottom. And so with that argument, you could conceivably say, right, well, the high probability, low risk outcome here is we have broken through a trend line. We're trying to reverse the trend, moving into higher highs and higher lows, but we're going to need that Kobo beforehand. That Kobo is going to coincide with a closing of the CME gap, and then we look to see where it goes. And for me, that ties in. That ties in perfectly. Then it throws it down into this level here. Kind of takes us down to that 61,000 level, which ties in with a 0.5 CME and the previous price action that I've been looking at there. And it starts to build that picture to me that this isn't actually something necessarily to worry about. It's just we're changing in the sentiment. We're getting out of that month-long downtrend at the moment. We're just trying to shake out some of the weaker hands and the naysayers. And then we'll hopefully be looking to move up, re-challenging that $64,000 level and then beyond. Now, for this full break and reversal to happen, I really want to see us interacting in and around that $67,000 level. However many higher highs and higher lows we put in to get there doesn't necessarily matter to me, but that's when I'm going to start to be more convinced that we've actually got there. Certainly above 64,000 and just sort of retesting that one and building some sort of support on the way up. That's when I'm going to feel more comfortable that we're on the way up to the top of this bull flag, ranging pattern, whatever it is that you want to call it, and take some movement from there. Let's have a look. That's that one. Okay. And then, I like to talk about this, and so I will. And that's the market maker. What do we talk about with the market maker? We're looking for M's, we're looking for W's, we're looking for threes, three of everything. And this is on the 4 hour again. And some sort of topping pattern here. We've come back down. We've retested the 50 EMA. Yes, I know we've gone over, but that was recovered immediately. We've come straight back down again. We've retested it. We've come back down again. So what have we had? We've had one. Oops, long way. 1, 2, 3. We've formed some sort of bottoming pattern. Is this one? Is this the consolidation zone of one? And that looks quite messy. I appreciate that. But is that now what we're looking at? This recovery of the CME gap, this retest of that trend line that we've broken through, is that the consolidation line? Now, we have lost the 50 EMA. I will give it that. And it looks like we may, but we're still within the cloud. So, it can be messy in these changeover periods. We've got to give it a few more there. But what I'm, looking to see is some sort of, maybe dip a little bit further back down, as I said from the last slide, to where we go. But are we now seeing that their bottoming pattern has played out and we're starting to see those rises going up? And so that's something that we need to just monitor on. Now, it's a bit of an interesting week in America because it's 4th of July, so I know that they're going to be closed there. So how that's going to actually affect the trading week, I don't necessarily know. It's a massive day for me because 4th of July is actually my birthday. But I don't know if Americans take the 4th of July off, and because it doesn't fall on the weekend or anything, they're going to take the Friday off as well. I don't know how long the markets are necessarily closed for, but given that this is the 4 hour, I would like to kind of see this pattern play out, certainly get some confirmation in the next 2 or 3 days that we have had that consolidation period and we are moving up for a rise too. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Thanks. I have seen your questions. I'm not ignoring them. I'm just going to tackle those in a moment, if that's okay. And then I found myself, I don't even know why, but after looking at all of this, I kind of found myself just looking at loads of graphics and charts and everything else from that much bigger picture of just, are we there? Where's it going? And I couldn't help because again, this is not a chart that I often look at, the stock to flow. And it's not because I don't necessarily believe in it, but it's just, what am I really getting from this except for hopium and despair? It's very difficult to see because I can look at things retrospectively. But what I think we can say with the stock to flow, and I'm not a pro on the power law, so I appreciate that people have moved over to the power law, and by all means, you're going to kind of get the same narrative and feel for what I'm about to say here from the stock to flow. But just to kind of, constantly remind ourselves to get our heads out of the weeds every so often. Just whether or not you're a fan of the stock to flow, what you can say is that when the market has peaked, the stock to flow chart has either been on the line that is drawn or it has significantly exceeded it. And with that in mind, just look where the next line is. It's $450,000 of Bitcoin. Now, I think that is a high estimate of where we can get to. $450,000 Bitcoin, you're talking about $8 trillion worth of BTC, not out of the realm of where we're going, and maybe an overall market cap of, I don't know, 10 to 12 trillion. Certainly kind of the high level of where we're thinking we may see BTC within there. But, BTC, the overall market cap within that. So, that $450,000 return is an incredibly powerful thing. And it again, just reminding myself that there is a reason why we do this. There's a reason why we take risks in alts, because I think most of us accept that they are riskier, but they give us a better opportunity to convert into either dollars, if that's what you're going to do, but into BTC when the bull market really kicks in. But I do find myself sort of forgetting about sort of how much of a move that is. With 60,000. And if we're to get anywhere within this line, we are talking an 8x in BTC alone from where we're going, which is, fantastic. I know that we look down on that because it's only an 8x single figure movement in only 12 months. Spit on that. Hockteur, I should have done. Sorry. Missed an opportunity there. Anyway. But this one as well. This one, I tried to join the Eco Inometrics website, but I've signed up to the free version. I don't think I'm going to get paid, but some interesting stuff that's come out here. Now, this one I think is a little disingenuous, and I'll explain why. But what they have very cleverly done is they have overlaid the percentage growth that we've seen in the previous 3 cycles to kind of say, look, if we experience any one of those, look where Bitcoin could get to. And you kind of have a look at that end of 2025, and there's an argument that said, hey, we could be at 3 million per Bitcoin. There's an argument that says we could be at, I don't know, round about 2 million per Bitcoin. Well, there's an argument that says we can be around about 450 to 500,000 Bitcoin based on what we experienced from the last one. And again, it's a great, what would you call this? The word has slipped my mind, but it's a great screenshot of where the narrative can go. Why do I say it's a little bit disingenuous? Well, what we have actually seen in the 3 previous halving cycles is diminished returns. So we have seen quite clearly this bluey green kind of color was the first halving cycle. Then you can see, we're looking at the figures, you can see we never peaked as high on the scale in the second halving. And similarly in the third, we were down here. So arguably, actually, we should really be looking at, I think, in my opinion, the third halving trajectory is the best we're likely to experience. And what we're realistically probably going to do is some form of diminished return from that. And that may put us anywhere from about $150,000 to $220,000, which is still 4x from where we currently sit at the moment, but a fantastic opportunity. Probably putting the overall Bitcoin market at sort of like $4 or $5 trillion, and where that puts the rest of the crypto market on top of that, I don't know, around about 9, 10 or something. So yeah, but again, head out of the weeds. We are in a really fantastic position at the moment. This is based on day 0 from the halving. What are we? 90 days past the halving now, probably just a little bit under. And we're worried at the moment that we're stuck in a 60k level, and we've been there since the halving. But what we've seen on all of these other trajectories is just the steepness that's coming before us in the next 12 months. And we just need to bear that in mind. And so for me, I have been tinkering with my pots. I've been telling you that I've, sold a few, bought some more, bought back into Casper, etc. But I need to have my tinkering done, ideally by the end of this month, because I'm away in August. And that's it. Wherever I find myself by the end of this month, I want to be comfortable that that's where I'm just going to sit on my hands. Maybe I take a risk on a sidestep, but I don't want to be in too much USDT. I want to keep some in case something new comes along, but I want to have something that I'm very happy with. Not too many altcoins out in there. I'm just comfortable to just play around. Sorry, not play around, to sit on and hold and not play around with, and just wait for the gains to come. So yes, we may see a blockbuster summer, as we called it, but I actually see this more of an opportunity to just reaffirm why I like the projects that I like, get rid of anything that I'm not as convinced on, or perhaps lack the conviction that I see in other ones I hold, shuffle that around, and then just tie it off and just get ready for Q3. No, we're in Q3, Q4 of 2024, and then into 2025, and where that takes us. So yeah, where are we at? 50 minutes. Okay, I haven't had a drink in that time. I will get into the questions now. So let's have a look at macro trends. But where do you see a good level to the Tau Cows flip flop? I think someone's asked that, so I will cover that in a second. Do you read anything into Sailor's tweets of BTC Apple in Kaz colors? Just a coincidence. I've not actually seen that. Sailor's tweets. Let's have a look. Just bear with me a second. Do you know when he tweeted it? I mean, given the Michael Saylor. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through. I can't. Oh, here we go. I don't read into that. But for me, I don't see the Casper colors. If they were inverted, maybe. I mean, if we get Casper up. For me, that's the Casper colors. Is that kind of this green here? This it. Why not just do Casper logo? No idea. That's what I see as Casper colors. So no, I don't necessarily see that as Casper coloring. Maybe that's just me. I'm sure he's aware of Casper, especially with the announcements, Marathon and the likes have actually been mining this for so long, and I don't think it's long before we find out that others have probably been doing the same. But no, I'm not necessarily there. What I'm more impressed about is him talking about is it Michael Dell? But anyway, the CEO, owner, founder of Dell, buying an absolute shed ton of Bitcoin last week, or confirming he had bought it. And we talk about billionaires getting into the market here. This guy has to take the biscuit. So yeah, him talking about that being newsworthy, I think is a very positive thing. Anyway, let's move that back over there. What happened in November 2003 to give a 449% return on BTC from the BTC return chart? Let's have a look. Okay. Let me just get a clean chart open, otherwise stay on this for ages. I mean, without Silk Road might have imploded in and around there. I mean, my history is a little foggy in and around that because I wasn't involved in Bitcoin there. So this was it. This could have been something like Mount Gox. Because you got to remember, back in 2013, there weren't many shows in town. I think Silk Road might have imploded before this. So it might have been a Mount Gox issue. Could have just been something as simple as, sites going down and everything. Back then, it was incredibly volatile. So I'm not 100% sure. I assume it's this one you're talking about. It went down to 80, and then, well, that's actually only 46. But I suppose it then obviously went up into there, and then there's a mess around. But I mean, hey, just wild times getting into the bulls. And you've also got to remember that the halving in 2012 happened much later. It happened in November. Normally we see them in the summer months. This one was actually in November of the year. So if that affected the cycles, I don't think the 4-year cycle, although we have established that there was a 4-year cycle, I think at the time, don't think people were really talking about it in that sense, just because it was, still finding out its feet. But there's some pretty crazy movements just throughout it. And that's the one thing. Why did I do this? Get back to where we started. Is, has the volatility gone in Bitcoin? I don't think so. But yeah, I didn't even talk about it. What we have seen, I've seen again, people getting excited about this. Where is my ETF inflow chart? Here we go. Yesterday, we finally saw a positive amount of Bitcoin inflows. There's $129.5 million worth of inflows, which was good to see. Now, we've obviously had pretty much a week's worth of positive inflows. Sorry, I'm just scratching my head. I swear last week we didn't have that. But anyway, I don't know if this has just been updated because we've had more news. Um, but yeah, it's good to now see the turning of the tide. And again, maybe the ETFs are trying to take advantage of the lull, the slump, whatever it is that you want to call it, that we experienced in June, buying those up as quick as we can before we start to see some sort of movement after the summer finishes. Now, I want to see a couple of weeks of steady inflows before we start, raising the flag of victory. But it's good. 5 days of positive inflows, and those increasing. 73 on Friday, 130 today. Yesterday. Today's will be out soon, and we'll see where it goes. It's good to see that BlackRock have been buying again, although that was on Friday, nothing yesterday. And again, some of the other ones too. Just, good to see. Okay. Some of the questions that I have been asked then. So Dan's asked me, can you give a quick walkthrough of Tau Stats, or on Tau Stats, of how we calculate the yield we've been receiving and any bonuses received? Cheers, Dan. I'm going to try, but the honest answer is I actually can't. So what we're talking about at the moment here, for those of you that looks just like I've spoken in Klingon, we're talking about BitTensor, we're talking about stake and rewards for, being a nominator within there. And what we have seen, and certainly what's been discussed in the group, is the APR has been dropping relatively drastically. It was not so long ago that we were talking about beyond 20%, 22, 25% APR. We're kind of now down in and around that 14% level, and that's kind of we've discussed why, and I think BitTensor Guru has sort of mentioned as well that is decreasing every single day, and it is going down. So that makes it very hard to calculate. And to be honest with you, Dan, I just don't bother whether that is laziness or lethargy or whatever. I know I'm getting my rewards. I just don't bother working out what it is because there's nothing I can necessarily do about it. And I actually don't have a problem with the APR dropping. Call it PTSD for rebasing DAOs or whatever. But yeah, soon we kind of get down to, low teens, single figures. I feel a bit more comfortable in terms of, dilution and how the tokenomics are going. But if you did want to work it out, you go onto BitTensor Stats. You go over to delegation and staking, and then once it loads, if it loads, here we go. So there is a staking calculator. Now, this is not 100% foolproof, but the biggest problem that we actually have is, as far as I can see, I don't know how accurate these APRs are here, and all because some of them are, less than 1%. But also it doesn't list everybody. So I use Avengers. They're not on the list. So I kind of have to take a bit of a fudge feel as to where it goes. But you could do one of two ways, in my opinion. You could put 100. So if we put 100 Tau here, and I choose Tau Stats and Corcel, I'm going to get 13.9 BitTensor back, which, because I'm using 100, that's the percentage over a year, isn't it? Which is an easy way of doing it. You can kind of work out what that is, or you could go, okay, well, I get 1, calculate again, which in this instance is 0.0004, and then you can sort of work out how much it is, because you've got to remember this calculator unfortunately doesn't compound it, so you'd have to just keep on doing this each time, but it kind of gives you a rough figure, so you could be, okay, well, actually, I don't know, let's pretend that we're big ballers and go, I own 14,270. Trust me, I do not. But if I did, I'd be getting 5.4 Tau every day, or $1,400 worth at the moment, 165 a month, and that many a year. So that's the best way that I can do it. I'm sure other people are actually stalking this a lot better, because of course, if you are with Foundry or Polychain or, God forbid, Cortex Foundation, and you realize you're only getting 0.5%, then yeah, you need to move, and it's so quick to move. It's not a problem. It takes 2 minutes. So you can be a snob and decide who is offering the best. Now, when I moved to Owl Ventures, they were providing the best at the time, above 20%. They are. I mean, I quickly tried to do a quick calculation. based on the last time I took a recording to where I'm at now. And it is difficult for me because I've been buying and selling, so it's kind of hard to work it out. But I kind of worked out that it is around 14%. So it's somewhere in and line around where they are here. Now, in terms of the bonuses, not everyone offers the bonuses. And I know, like, again, Keith came out on Twitter today to say, did that not pop up? Okay. Let me just... And he came out to say that they are working through the June bonuses as they speak, and they should be dropping any time. So, as we found in our group, some people actually haven't been getting their rewards. Am I spelling his name wrong? Here we go. No, I wasn't. Thought perhaps I was. Where did he put it? June kickback transfers will be coming out shortly. We've got some sort of issue with the new subtensor and our existing script for generating 1,200 transactions. So if you have been staking with the likes of BitTensor Guru and you are eligible for reward, you're going to have a look at that independently. And don't just look on the first of the month because it looks like they have to do it manually. I just keep stalking it. And remember, it gets delivered to your address. It doesn't get auto compounded into your amount. So you then have to manually transfer it. But I'm not with BitTensor Guru. I missed out on being in that section or, snapshot for the bonus. So I don't necessarily know where that one sits. But hopefully it answers your question, if nothing else. Next one is, are any of the political parties more crypto-friendly than others? I don't know which parties you're talking about here, whether you're talking about the UK ones, because for those of you that aren't based in the UK, and for those of you that don't give a shit about politics, the UK has a general election on Thursday. And I mean, unless something absolutely drastic happens, we will be having a new government, Labour government's in. I don't think there's really anyone that's come out even bothering talking about it. Now, gone are the days where I'm bothering to read people's manifestos. My wife actually did, but she never said to me that anyone was talking about crypto. I'm sure she would have mentioned it, knowing that I'm into crypto. So I don't think anyone's particularly there. I mean, you could argue that the current Conservative government have talked, they've not delivered, but they've talked about being a crypto mecca and all of this kind of stuff, but they haven't really delivered on it. So I don't think there is any. If you were talking about US policies, then at the moment, it seems to be that it's the Republicans. Now, Biden, if he's even going to be in come November, has tried to counter that and suggest that there is some crypto-friendly policies he'd be willing to explore. But who knows if he's even going to be running, alive, compos mentis, whatever. But it certainly seems that Trump is playing that card. I mean, he's even talked about pardoning Silk Road's founder, Ross Ulbricht. And, some of the other policies that he's looking in. He's taking Bitcoin as political donations, etc. And even the Winklevoss twins, they actually exceeded, I think they gave him like $1 million worth in Bitcoin. It might have actually been significantly more, but they had to get a lot of it sent back to them because they exceeded the amount that they could donate to one particular party. So they take it back. But the gesture there. So yeah, I think definitely Republicans from that side of things. Now, if that were the case and you were to try and translate that over to the UK, you would argue Republicans, Conservatives, they'd be the ones that would be for it. Democrats not so much for it. You could argue Labour wouldn't be, but that is, just literally adding 2 + 2 and getting fish. Next one. Where has... I always worry. There we go. I've shut down the stream by mistake, but thankfully I haven't. The next question there was these are all from Raheem, so thanks for these. Comment on stonks. If so, do you see a head and shoulders pattern on the video? And how would that affect AI coins if that were to play out? Well, we'll have a look at this in a moment, but NVIDIA is not only holding up AI, I say holding up, helping boost AI tokens in this narrative. It's pretty much carrying the entire US economy at the moment on its shoulders. So, a fall from grace from NVIDIA will have implications across S&P, NASDAQ, crypto, AI specific tokens. Absolutely, it will. How long that is lived, we don't know. I mean, to be fair to Nvidia, they're not the only player in town, but they have positioned themselves perfectly within the market to take advantage of the AI gold rush that is currently going on. I'm not talking about AI crypto gold rush here. I'm talking about general AI gold rush that we have seen over the last couple of years, which will only continue to grow. I saw someone, I can't remember who it was now, commenting that until we get that killer AI app, that AI hasn't really taken over the world yet. And I kind of get it, I suppose. Chat GPT certainly put AI on the map. Whether or not there is a Chat GPT killer out there to take it out, who knows? I mean, we saw that with things like email and everything else, AOL, etc. First to the scene, but haven't survived. So yeah, that could well be the case. Let's have a look. I don't normally talk about stonks, not because I'm afraid to talk about them, although that's a good way to get your wrist slapped. I just don't really follow them. Head and shoulders, you say? I mean, I assume what you mean by the head and shoulders is that head and then potentially a shoulders. I mean, I see where you're coming from. Neckline potentially there, about to break it. Or are we just seeing, a hell of a move up and then just a natural pullback, kind of similar to this one here, a retest of the 50 EMA before we get another breather heading on the way back up. I think a movement down to the 50 EMA could actually validate a head or shoulders that you're talking about there. Yeah, that run it's had, from April to end of June, that doesn't look like much, but the just billions, if not trillions of dollars that's just helped the US economy with, is astronomical. So, people selling here, that's not necessarily a surprise to take advantage of that move. And a lot of these people will have been in this move right the way down. I take it the stock split has happened. Yes, there it was back at the beginning of June. Okay, there you go, 10-1 as well. Okay, back to the questions. Your take on the Tau Kaz flip flop. How would you play it? So I'm getting back into the Tau Kaz flip flop because obviously I've been Tau, but portfolio. So I think I got this the right way around. Again, some people have it as Kaz Tau, and some people have it as Tau Kaz. But what we're seeing at the moment is, there's nothing in this chart, just looking solely at this chart at the moment, that is saying to me that Tau is suddenly going to start outperforming Casper. We are struggling, like Tau has been, to break that 10 EMA. We're making lower low and lower high after lower low and lower low, and we need some sort of reversal pattern. Matter of fact, for me, I really see the bottom of this vector candle being the recovery because of this price action that you can't see because my face is in the way. Back from November, that's a fairly flat bottom there with some strong sort of resistance there. That kind of feels like that's where this is going to. This is just getting steeper and steeper and slippier to get back down. So I certainly see that. What I will say is I take this chart or any chart where you're comparing one cryptocurrency with another cryptocurrency that isn't USDT or Bitcoin, just with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because as I'm going to show you when we go into Casper a little bit later on, something fundamentally could happen to one of those projects, which is completely outside of the cryptocurrency market, that has a massive implication on this, has nothing to do necessarily with TA. So yeah, we just need to bear that in mind. And you could argue that potentially this pump up here has something to do with the not failed launch, because it didn't fail to launch, but with the struggles and the difficulties it had with the KRC20s. God, it feels like a tongue twister, that. Getting that running up and running successfully, minting it, some of the potential issues that came from in and around that. But at the moment, I'm more interested in buying Casper than I am in buying Tau. And part of me is thinking, do I just take what I have left on the sideline from Tau and put that into Casper for a short-term play, swap it around. Now, I do that, it's going to reverse. So if anyone wants to pay me for my losses, I will happily do that. But yeah, that's where I see that one. I gave this. Are you still staking with Owl Ventures? I am. I see the comments regarding staking rewards on Tau. Do you know if Owl Ventures staking rewards are still as they were? They are not. They used to be in the 20s. I'm sure they were higher than that before I got involved with them. They are now down to the low teens. I think I've explained that one there. Hopefully that covers it for you. I've seen some other ones in the chats. Let's have a look. Alan's put staking reward distribution was also lessened as a whole. The entire BitTenter system. There's now a big percentage going to the root network. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, I do remember us talking about that in Discord. So that is an absolutely valid point there. Saw posted, if you hold over 100 Tau, you're a top 5% holder. I think that's fantastic. I would argue, it's difficult because I feel like RT is a relatively small group, compared to other crypto groups that are out there. But at the same time, I do feel like we have a lot of buying power. And I bet you there's a very large percentage of RT members that hold over 100 Tau because our portfolios are very refined and focused on certain things. So fantastic, eh? And also, yeah, I was going to say something stupid. I'm not going to. Erjan's put, take a look on Discord. I put a sample of my spreadsheet where I work out the rewards. Let's have a look. Oh, yes, you did. I just move it across. Wow. Oh, you did. I remember you putting this now. And I tell you what, hats off to you. Because, one, for the amount of Tau you have, and two, the amount of dedication it takes for you to do that. Do you just data mine that? I think you can take an API off Tau stats. I've spoken to someone privately about trying to do that for their what do you call it? I can't even speak. For their tax reasons. But yeah, I mean that's a way of being very on top of exactly where it is. And I assume this far column here, 'cause it's not labeled, is the percentage. But you can kind of see that is dropping from 16% back end of May to, although it did a little bump up, but roughly 14% down here. Yeah, just hit the export CSV file. Yeah, thought so. Okay. I've noticed since December, it's always taken some time to get the kickback to rewards. I think they've changed it onto a different kind of system there. And it was January, I think, that BitTenter Guru did his, I can't remember it. His line in the sand. What's the term? Anyway, so maybe that had something to do with it. It'd be interesting to have an anonymous poll to see how much Tau people have so we can see how much we have as a group. I'd be interested too, but I know of one gigantic whale. I think we all do, and that figure frightens me. But yeah, I think it's good. Maybe we'll put a poll in the group, see if people are willing to contribute towards it and towards commenting, not to pay any for it. Okay, so after that, I think that's all that done there. Right, let's have a talk now about some crypto. What time we're on? 9:15. It's going to be a bit longer. I'm going to try and summarize a couple of cryptos before we hop off. I want to be done by 9:30 if I can, because I don't like these taking too long. So let's just jump straight to Tau. Okay, this is where I'm at with Tau. This is what I'm seeing. Actually, we've already fallen below 250 at the moment. This is the line that I have been following, and I've kind of been buying back at this line. So I think after this call, I will follow through and just buy a little bit more back. But right now, really struggling with that 10 EMA, and it's just holding it back. And even when we do slightly get above it, what have we got in front of us? We've got the 20, which has always kicked us back. The 50 now is as low as 340. And then this upper trend line is at 365 with the 200 EMA there. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done for Tau. Now, I don't think it's anything to fear in the long term. I'm sure we're going to get some news that say, whilst this price has been driving down, people have been trying to accumulate this, probably OTC. I keep on saying to myself, I've even written a note on my scratch pad to research BitTensor Tau, and I never get around to it because at the moment I've been spending some time on subnet alpha, just trying to learn about the different subnets. But I want to see how much FUD there is around there. That I want to be challenged. I want people to talk to explain to me why they don't like it and what it is, and maybe relate it to this price action here. But this is just some form of pullback. It is going on longer, but the market's been ranging. But we've seen that kind of level of pullback here. And, if we have a look at the percentage there, oops, from top to bottom, I faded it. Sorry, it's a bit thin. That was 52%. This one here at the moment, 66%. I mean, they're comparable, but it has gone further. But this is not something we haven't seen before. And then what do we see? We saw that almighty rise. Get rid of both of those. We saw that almighty rise from the base up to here. And that was, that was a 287% increase. And if we were to even experience some of that, 287%, that's going to take us to, just under 1,000. So miss my question 4 comments up. I'll have a look at that one, Chris. I promise. So yeah, okay, let's go back. Chris, small rewards from Tau staking may reassure, but do you think it will affect price? The scarcity of Tau on the market caused by the popularity of staking led to rapid rise early on. I don't know. I think Tau has established itself. I think Tau has its stellar rise from $40 to 400 and then back down, then up to 700, I think has at least caught the imagination of some people. It's put it on the map. The one thing that I worry about at Tau is how complicated it is. How do you explain BitTensor to someone that's new to crypto? I don't even understand all the subnets. How can I then be explaining all that different stuff? So it's something that really, I think they need to try and find a way of getting that message out. But yeah, I personally find the reduction in the rates a positive thing, because dilution of an asset, etc., is just worrying. We saw that with us, but a lot of people won't look at it like that, and I accept that. They'll be wanting their 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100% a year because they think that that's actually benefiting them. But what they don't really take into account is actually how much it's diluting the overall price as well. It's definitely having some movement at the moment. BitTensor, if we put it on the 5-minute chart, something's happening. The rest of the market isn't really reacting at the moment, so something's going on there. And like for those that bought at 600, I bought at 600. I bought and sold a few in other places as well, but I'm not dumping as such. There's definitely some fun and games going on. Harry, are you still in DOT? Yes, I am. I still have my full DOT allocation. Now, I stupidly was going to sell all my staking rewards and buy NEAR if NEAR got below $5, which it did, and I never got around to doing it. I even logged on to KuCoin to do it, to Kraken to do it, and I never did. But actually, recently, DOT has started to perform again. BitTensor scaring me, so I'm just going to click off it. And we've actually started to see the DOT is positively moving up, from down at 530. We're challenging the 50 EMA at the moment. So, hey, I expect some sort of pullback here. But we have formed, or we've started to form a higher high. I think we need to probably take out 670, if I'm being honest. But we've had some positive news. I didn't bother talking about it in the news event, but Coinbase are trying to launch some sort of derivative CFTC for a few altcoins, one of them being Polkadot. That just gives regulatory availability and transparency to institutional investors. Link's another one, Stellar's another one. I can't remember the other two, but that's good. Good news for DOT, and I'm sure DOT's riding the wave of that. In terms of a stop loss for me, I don't have one. My average buy for Polkadot this cycle alone is sub $4. If you take into account, which I spoke about at the cuddle, how much I originally put into Polkadot and where I'm at the moment, my average entry into Polkadot is less than $1. So I'm absolutely fine with where I'm at with it. Maybe I have too much Polkadot, and I have been getting rid of my power chains. I've still got a tiny bit of Glimmer left, which I'll probably get rid of, put into something else. But yeah, that's to answer that one. Alan's put again, there's a rumor of mass dumping of underperforming subnets before DTOs goes live and they can't coast anymore. Good research hole for it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to jump on and try and understand. So thanks for that. I'll dig into that one as soon as I can. Let's talk about Casper, because I mentioned this earlier on. And again, that kind of level that I drew on the weekly charts to the daily is something that's definitely attracted to me. But what have we known about Casper for the last few months? We're talking about testnets, 10 blocks per second, that kind of stuff. Then we've been moving on to this KRC 20 token. And before we look at the charts, just think of it from a fundamental point of view. Think of it from a market maker point of view. Pushing that price up on positive news, buy the rumor, sell the news. And then suddenly, what happens the day we launch for KRC20? We get an all-time high. Well, yes, we have problems, but now the market starts to move back down for CAS. And that's kind of what I see. It's almost like a textbook move from the market makers. Use the positive news that's coming out from a fundamental point of view to drive enthusiasm to get that price back up. And then once it drops, they start selling to take their bags. And that's kind of feels like where it's going, which is why I have some level of confidence that we are going to see at least a retest of this 50 EMA. As that moves up, it's going to be in and around 16 cents, which lo and behold, actually takes out this exposed vector candle. So I have a few of my buys at the moment set at 16. I also have some at 14.5, which is if it takes some time to get down to this kind of trend line. I've drawn the trend line better, and that's where I see it. But don't get it twisted or anything like that. Casper has convinced me through its price action over the last 3 months, longer really, but certainly since the end of April, that it actually deserves to be in my portfolio because whether or not I believe in it as a token, I can't ignore the price action. I just want to get in at a better price. And I think there is an incredible support for it. And for whatever reason, its memeability outshines. I looked at it from a memeability point of view of it's a payment system. I don't think that's really a narrative that's going to massively take off. So I wasn't too interested within it. The Bitcoin silver just didn't really work for me. But hey, I'm happy to be wrong. I'll be more than happy to be wrong when this thing hits $1 or whatever. So I am liking the strength that I'm seeing there. The 4 hour, again, okay, coming close to that 50 EMA. Someone asked me about a head and shoulders here. And again, a bit like with the NVIDIA one, I can kind of see it. Absolutely. Neckline's where we're at the moment. It drops back down. That kind of takes us to that 16 level, which I've been planning, which we talked about before. It will recover those vector candles. So yeah, now, is it a bit too compact and the head's a bit too high? It's not the best looking head and shoulders, but I get where you're coming from with it. I think naturally it's just going to get a pullback anyway, which would actually validate the head and shoulders that you're saying there. So I'm not ruling it out. I can't discredit the comment you're making there. But yeah, I've just got my buys in and around down here, and then as I said, a little bit further down there. Do you know what? I think we'll just knock it on the head. I want to have a look at Tau. I mean, the one thing about Tau at the moment, okay, so we have made a local low down here. I don't really think there's anything too surprising with this at the moment. We have been traipsing in and around this bottom level for a while. I talked earlier on about that 200 level being a level of support. Now we lose that, and I got to be honest with you, I don't really see much till about 120 after that. So the 200 is kind of where I'm putting a lot of my eggs right now. But yeah, the more we just batter this trend line, the weaker it is going to get. So maybe we do start, unfortunately, seeing a bit more of a move down. And if we do, yes, okay, I may be able to take advantage of it. But don't get it mistaken. A very large proportion of my portfolio, around about 20%, is actually in Tau as we speak. So I think my average buy, I'll have to have a look, but it's probably about 350. So I'm still a bit underwater from it all. Richard's put BitCenter documentary and potential cup and handling form on CAS is in July. Is looking good. Cup and handle on CAS. I just not. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's probably something that could draw it, but that would be the cup and handle. I could have drawn it to the top there, which is a bullish pattern, and can see us go to, we're going to be in price discovery. It's hard to give a level, and I will follow the fractal patterns that I know Simon puts out. But yeah, that 25-30 cents. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility by the end of the summer, maybe into September. But I certainly want to be positioned to take advantage of that, and I'm gonna eat the humble pie and not try and trade it as much like I tried last time. I just missed out on from 12 to 16 cents really, which is frustrating. Okay, Let's have a look. I'm not going to bother going through any of the other ones. Here is where my portfolio looks at the moment, business side. And I apologize. I used to have my business side, Bitcoin, represented by blue. I mean, what are we here, animals? So I have changed that. I've not smartened up. It's purple here, but at least the business side is represented with orange. Still 100% there. This is the other side. So NIR's about 30%, DOT's 27. Actually, TAL's 16. I thought it was a little bit more than that. USDC, so still about 7% on the side. Bitcoin 7. Render and CAS at 5. Link at 3. And Glimmer at 1. Glimmer's going to go soon. I'll be honest. Just looking for an ideal time to sell it. I have to wait 7 days because I've got to unstake it. But I think, it's just time. I've already sold a decent amount of it. I'm just going to get rid of the rest. Put it in TAL, put it in CAS or something. So that's where it currently sits. And yeah, this Bitcoin here, I may end up getting an opportunity to trade that, or I might just hold on to it. I think I will trade it at some stage, just given what the business portfolio is. But just nice to hold at the moment for now. And that's everything from me. A little bit longer than normal, almost an hour and a half there. So thank you for that. It was not my intention to drag it on too long. But thank you very much for tuning in. As always, we have the Trading Pub on Thursday at 1 p.m. I've got to get used to the new timing. There is a cuddle early August. Unfortunately, I can't make it because it was supposed to be this weekend in July, and I'm away in August, as I've mentioned. So I won't be able to make that one. I will be there for the September one. But if you can make it and you do want to make it, tickets are available. Obviously, they're free for us. You just need to put your name down for it. And yeah, if you have any questions or you want me to explain anything else, feel free to just tag me in something on Discord. Send me a private message, whatever it is. And other than that, all it's left to do is say, enjoy the rest of your evening. If we can, we'll see what TAL's doing. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next Tuesday and have a good evening. Thank you very much. Cheers now.